A homeless father gambling his grocery money built a billion-dollar empire. John Paul DeJoria was 36, broke, and sleeping in his Rolls Royce. Wait, scratch that. He sold the Rolls months ago. He was sleeping in a beat-up Datsun with his 2-year-old son, John Anthony, surviving on whatever change he could scrape together. But here's the thing that separates legends from everyone else. What do you do when you've got absolutely nothing left to lose? Most people would have called their parents, begged for help, maybe taken that soul-crushing job at the factory. Not DeJoria. This madman looked at his last $700, money that should have gone toward rent or food for his kid, and decided to start a hair care company. A hair care company. The guy who was shampooing his hair with bar soap because he couldn't afford real shampoo. His business partner was Paul Mitchell, a British hairdresser with big dreams and even bigger debt. Together, these two broke dreamers were going to take on giants like L'Oreal and Revlon, the established companies that have been dominating salons for decades, companies with marketing budgets bigger than most people's net worth. They mixed their first batch of shampoo in DeJoria's garage, the same garage where he'd been storing the few possessions he hadn't sold yet. The formula was simple. Natural ingredients when everyone else was loading their products with harsh chemicals. But simple doesn't pay the bills, and natural doesn't keep the lights on. The rejection started immediately. Salon owners took one look at these two desperate guys with their homemade bottles and laughed them out the door. Department stores wouldn't even let them through the loading dock. The beauty industry had no room for outsiders, especially outsiders who looked like they hadn't eaten a decent meal in weeks. DeJoria started going door to door, literally carrying bottles of shampoo in a cardboard box, trying to convince individual hairdressers to give his product a shot. He'd sleep in his car outside salons, waiting for them to open so he could make his pitch. His son, John Anthony, would sometimes come with him, this tiny kid watching his father get rejected over and over again. But rejection became fuel. Every slammed door, every condescending look from store managers, every time someone told him to get a real job, it all went into the fire that was driving him forward. He'd been homeless before, been told he'd never amount to anything before. This was just another mountain to climb. The breakthrough came from the most unlikely place. A small salon in West Hollywood decided to try Paul Mitchell products, not because they believed in the company, but because DeJoria wouldn't stop coming back. The owner figured maybe if she bought a few bottles, this persistent guy would finally leave her alone. Those bottles sold in 3 days. The stylists loved the formula. Customers started asking where they could buy it for home use. Word spread through the tight-knit community of professional hairdressers like wildfire. Suddenly, other salons were calling, wanting to know about this new brand nobody had heard of. DeJoria reinvested every penny back into the business. No fancy office, no expensive marketing campaigns. Just more product and more miles on his beaten-up car as he expanded his territory. He and Mitchell made a pact. They wouldn't sell to mass retailers, only to professional salons. This kept their margins higher and made salon owners feel special, like they were offering something exclusive. The company grew organically, salon by salon, stylist by stylist. DeJoria was still living modestly, but now by choice rather than necessity. He moved out of his car, got an apartment, could finally afford to buy his son proper meals. But he never forgot those nights in parking lots, never forgot what it felt like to risk everything on a dream that nobody believed in. By the late 80s, Paul Mitchell was generating millions in annual revenue. The two guys who couldn't get a meeting with department store buyers were now being courted by major corporations wanting to acquire their brand. DeJoria had offers that would have set him up for life, but he wasn't interested in just getting rich. He was building something bigger than money. The company expanded beyond hair care, into professional styling tools, then into completely different industries. DeJoria co-founded Patron Spirits, turning the same entrepreneurial intensity towards building a premium tequila brand. Everything he touched seemed to turn profitable, but it all traced back to those desperate nights when failure wasn't an option because he had a son depending on him. Today, John Paul DeJoria's net worth exceeds $3 billion. He owns mansions, yachts, and yes, plenty of cars that aren't Datsuns. But he still remembers the exact taste of the cheap coffee he used to buy with quarters found between car seats. Still remembers the weight of his sleeping son in the back seat while he planned his next sales pitch. The lesson isn't about hair care or even about business. It's about the power of having absolutely nothing to lose. When conventional wisdom says you should quit, when every rational person would call it impossible, when you're sleeping in your car with your kid, that might be exactly when you're ready to build an empire.